Hello there. Welcome to my video. Today I want to talk about a conversation I had with a female pedophile. I'm trying this live stream from my Chromebook. I'm hoping it's not as choppy as when I used my cell phone. To give you full disclosure, I'm feeling very scared right now. I just did some meditation and prayer, talking to God, and I felt some of my fears, and I was shaking, and I'm not entirely sure all the reasons why, but I've been working on some of them. I'm concerned with being concise, with not going on too many tangents. I'm concerned with getting as much as I can of the points that I want to make out. I'm concerned with sharing the story of this woman as best as I can, in a way that would be honest, and also giving my own reflections in a meaningful way about my discussion with her. I'm also somewhat concerned about the feedback I receive. I'm concerned about the chat that people will, any messages I might receive in chat, any comments or questions I might receive. I will repeatedly look over to see how many people are watching. I will periodically look to see if anyone has submitted a question or comment in the chat. And I might pause during these instances and be a little distracted. I'm going to try to work through that and become quicker with getting through that. No one is here watching at this time, but for future reference, I will say that this is a live Q&A, and if you would like to leave a comment or ask a question, you can. And I would ask that you come with a spirit of wanting to be educated, wanting information about myself, what information I can deliver. I want you to know that I'm imperfect and not all of my information will be good. But I do believe that I have good information to give, and I will always share about my experiences to the best of my ability and honestly. If you make a comment or even ask a question that has a shade of nastiness and vitriol in it, if it's deliberate, I will attempt to ban you from my live chat. I think this is very important for myself and anyone else watching. My own personal feelings are that bullying and nasty attitudes can be much worse than even like a physical violent exchange. So when most people think about violence, they think about, kicking someone, punching someone, using a weapon, and bringing physical harm to someone. My understanding of violence is broader than that. Violence includes emotional abuse. So if I detect that someone is attempting to be emotionally violent in the chat, then I will ban that person. And also if they're being violent towards someone else, that will, make me want to ban that person. And I also might be wrong, but this is a work in progress. So I'm going to get this underway. I'm going to talk about some objectives I have for this video. The first objective is to present the highlights of my discussion with a female pedophile. The second is to feel my fears about people watching, commenting, and asking questions. The third is to talk about what I learned and give my feelings about the discussion. And the fourth is to answer questions and comments until it interferes with the first three objectives. So those are the basic goals that I have for this. I'm going to really try and strive to chiefly do the first goal, which is to represent the discussion I had with this woman as best I can. So, this is how it all started. I posted a live video last week about this time, and the video was called, I believe, Live Q&A on Pedophilia. And I included my contact information, my email address in the description of that video, and I was contacted by someone that goes by the moniker, this is not her real name, of Tyler Tylers. That's Tyler space Tyler, again with an S at the end this time. Tyler Tylers. So she sent me an email, and I thought I would read the exchange that we had. This is from Tyler Tylers. Hi there, Theodore. My name is Tyler. I am a 22-year-old female pedophile, and I just had a few questions for you because your video was linked in a community I'm in. And although I'm very curious, I have no way to watch it. I lack the ability to watch on-topic videos where I am right now. Looking forward to hearing back from you. I respond, Hey Tyler, I'm not sure what you mean when you say you are a female pedophile. Are you a female or a male who likes females? What questions do you have? She responds, I am a female pedophile. So here I gather that she is a woman who's a pedophile. And then she says, I was wondering if you are pro-contact or anti-contact or maybe a center. Are you a part of any communities? So I had to look up what that meant, what anti-contact and what pro-contact meant. It's pretty obvious that pro-contact is basically, as a pedophile, I feel that I can seek a sexual liaison with a child, and I may do that. And as an if you were an anti-contact pedophile, you would not seek that, basically. So my response is, interesting. I don't know many female pedophiles. I am anti-contact. I'm not part of any community at this time. I talk about my pedophilia because I want to be open and honest about everything in my life, but I do think my attraction towards children is wrong, and that I can change into a person who no longer finds children attractive. I appreciate you contacting me. Tell me more about yourself if you wish, and ask me any more questions you may have. One thing I would like to know is, are you exclusively attracted to children? And what gender are you attracted to? And Tyler responds, female pedophiles are definitely a rare breed. I don't know very many myself either. Is there a reason why you're not okay with being a pedophile? I am pro-contact due to the experiences I had when I was younger, but I am anti-abuse. I'm not an exclusive pedophile, and I'm attracted to all genders. My area of attraction is pretty open, 3 to 12 for girls and 3 to 40 for boys. My response is this. Ever since I was young, I have wondered how romance works. I now believe that monogamy is fundamental because I believe our heart is geared to loving only one other person. If that is true, we are not meant to seek different partners throughout our life, and the fact that we have attractions for different people is not part of God's desire for us. So my object in life is to discover the emotions I have inside that have guided my attractions to different men and women of different ages, and then to release those emotions in hopes of finding my soulmate and creating an eternal bond with her. I agree with you that abuse and sexual manipulation is wrong. Would you share what happened to you when you were a child? Have you ever had any qualms or misgivings about your attraction towards children? And Tyler responds, all I can say is that our points of view are quite the opposite, but I don't mind continuing to talk if you don't. I had a lot of sexual experience while I was a child. older cousins when I was young, and I had an adult lover from about 5 to 10. I only sought after adult lovers after a young teen. Uh, I'm not sure what she's saying here. Until my adult age. I had only a mere second of guilt once I realized I was also attracted to children. I then realized that I shouldn't feel bad because I would never want to harm a child, either physically or emotionally. Therefore, my love for them can't possibly be wrong. And I respond, wow, interesting life. I mean, you characterize your relationship with your adult lover in a way to suggest it was mutual. Is that so? And with your cousins, was it also mutual in a way? Have you ever been abused or molested? Interesting response that she has. I would actually consider myself the instigator in all situations. I never considered myself abused or molested or raped. I know I enjoyed those experiences because I remember trying to make things happen. I could go into more detail if you'd like. I especially instigated the acts with my adult friend. I was the only girl he'd ever been with and had interest for, and I believe I was the one who put those interests in his head, being as I already knew what I liked and what to do after the times with my cousins. Sorry to break the flow, and this is my response. Sorry to break the flow, but some questions come to mind. I know that prepubescent males can get erections, but can they have orgasms and ejaculate? Also, can the female vagina become engorged and lubricated for a prepubescent female as it does with an adult female? And can girls have orgasms? I thought you might know the answers to these questions. I wouldn't be opposed to talking on the phone, by the way. If you have concerns of privacy, you can be assured I will not misuse your number and not call you unless you wish to be called. I will give you my number if you are interested and agree also not to contact me if I ask you not to. So that began our phone exchange. I gave my phone number, and we talked the next morning. And it was a very interesting talk. I'm going to go over some things that I wanted to talk about in this video. Maybe I'll just read them for you. Getting the email from Tyler and having a conversation with her was a gift. Hearing her experience was very, very valuable to me. I learned that children can become aroused and have orgasms. I learned that children can have a desire to have a sexual relationship. How I feel about Tyler being a pedophile. I define pedophilia as a promiscuous lust for children, so I really want to say that. I do define pedophilia as a promiscuous lust for children. I do not think that we were created to be pedophilic, to be pedophiles. I believe our actual design was to become one with our soulmate in a sexual union. I will also say that if a 20-year-old person is attracted to a 10-year-old person who is their soulmate, so if an adult is attracted to a minor who is their soulmate, that I do not consider to be pedophilia. So that's probably a different definition to, the pedophilia that you've heard. Pedophilia basically means sexual feelings directed towards children. And I would agree with that, but I would also define it as promiscuous sexual feelings. And I also use the word lust because I do not think it's in line with God's design for us. So, with that, shall I talk about my discussion with Tyler? Well, it was interesting. As I mentioned before, I had to look up what a pro-contact pedophile and what an anti-contact pedophile was. Also, just to mention, I'm in the library. I'm very concerned with people overhearing, and the walls aren't very thick, and I am keeping it kind of low. And I also find that keeping my voice kind of low helps me to be at I don't know, I'm a little more calm. I'm a little more at peace, which is good. But yeah, I had to find out what pro and anti-contact meant. And I looked it up, and I found an article from an anti-contact pedophile explaining their reasons why pro-contact is a problem. And this person had 10 reasons. And I read them, and I thought I would just start my discussion with Tyler on the phone, seeing what she agreed with on the arguments and what she didn't agree with. So basically, I was asking her, do you believe in these pro-contact arguments? I'm kind of so let me just explain the stance that Tyler has. Tyler, if there were not laws to prevent adults and children from having sexual relationships, she would have sexual relationships. But because of the way it is now, she is basically an anti-contact pedophile. I could add some commentary, but I don't really want to add commentary until the end. That's basically her stance. I asked her if she had any questions for myself. She didn't really, and she wasn't used to asking questions, she said. But so I decided to ask her questions. I asked her about her upbringing. I asked her about her sexual experiences growing up. I asked her about her sexual orientation. As I told her, I believe that people are either heterosexual or homosexual. In other words, I don't believe in bisexuality. I don't really believe in queer, but queer might be a little bit different. But basically, I don't believe in this might be different because it's not really sexuality, but transgenderism, I don't agree with that. I've made some videos about that. But I told her that, and I was, completely honest about why I was asking her this question that I was asking her, which was that do you find yourself more attracted to, because she said that she was attracted to men and women. She said that she's attracted to girls between the age of 3 and 12, I believe, and men between like 3 and 40. And I asked her, are you more attracted to men or girls? And she said girls. I found it very interesting that although she's had experiences with men, she's actually attracted to girls. Because often the logic would be that, if you've had experiences with an older man as a young girl, you're going to continue being attracted to older men. That wasn't the case. So I believe that she is what you might call a lesbian, a homosexual woman. But she actually told me at one point that she would date a woman who had girls so that she could be with the girls. Now, as an anti-contact pedophile, she wouldn't actually go through with it, but she likes to be around girls. Again, I want to make a comment on that, but I kind of want to save that for the end. So I asked her about her experiences growing up, and I was very interested in her saying that she instigated her experiences. And here's what she told me. She learned about masturbation very young. It was a very natural thing for her. She used to rub her clitoris against the sides of tables, the edges of tables, and other things. You will see younger people doing this. It's natural, I now believe. And I believe that we should be allowing children to explore themselves sexually. Um, but I would also say that we ought to instruct children to uh, connect to their own feelings, connect to their own soul, and find their soulmate, basically. And the way that you find your soulmate is by connecting to your own soul. But anyway, in Tyler's case, she experimented very early. She was 4, maybe, yeah, she was about 4 when she, was really experimenting. She enjoyed it. And when she was at her cousin's place, she had like, at the time, cousins in their teens, two male cousins in their teens, and she was 4. And she, I don't know if she was caught masturbating, but or not. But her cousin came in and saw her masturbating, rubbing herself against something, and she chose not to stop, and she continued. And you could say that she enjoyed the fact that he was watching, and that basically escalated to a physical interaction between herself and her cousins. It started with them rubbing her with her clothes on, and it escalated to physical intercourse. I want to take that back. I'm not sure if it did escalate with her cousins to physical intercourse, but there was like I guess you could say fingering and manipulation with the hands. And I don't know how mutual it was as far as Tyler also touching her cousin's penis and stimulating them. I'm not sure about that. But anyway, she had these experiences, and she learned about sexuality and sex and the pleasures of sex. And fast forward to her home life. Her father was not in the picture for the most part, but she does know who her father is. Doesn't have a great relationship with him, I guess you could say, or a meaningful relationship. Her mother was her guardian, her caretaker. And at one point, her mother rented to a tenant, a man in his older 20s. And this man became her babysitter and her caretaker when her mother was at work or not around. And so he was often in her care, or she was often in his care. So what ended up happening is that Tyler did basically the same thing with this man. She would masturbate. She would rub herself against things, and she was not concerned if he was around and watching. I'm not sure exactly how it went down, but the impression that I got was that he wasn't necessarily looking for sexual contact with her at the time. Again, I want to make a comment on that, but I'm going to save it. She wanted to be seen by him, and she knew that she wanted to be touched by him. And there were moments where he would turn away, and he, made the decision that I'm not going to engage with her. And when she saw that, she, you could say, became aggressive. She did certain things like she took her clothes off in front of him. This is, 4 or 5 years old, very young age. And she would be naked, and she would hide in his closet and hide, and pull the covers of his bed over herself and kind of hide, waiting for him. And so she was instigating this. I feel fairly confident about that. She was interested in experiencing a sexual relationship with this man. Very interesting stuff. I have never heard, a testimony like this, and it meant a lot to me. Yeah. At a certain point, what happened was this man, after her repeated attempts at, you might say seduction, he went after her. He went for her, and he grabbed her and began manipulating her with his own hands, touching her. And this escalated to other things. So finally, he recognized his own desire for her and acted upon it. And this led to a several years relationship where these two were having regular sexual intercourse. A child in, between the ages of 5 and 10, and an older man in his upper 20s and beyond. At a certain course, I'm not going to give, at a certain point, I should say, I'm not going to give the details of this, but at a certain point, it was discovered what was going on. And the mother became aware of what was happening. I will say one more thing, which is that I asked Tyler if there was any romance and between herself and the man, and she evaded a little bit. I mean, she talked about the exciting times that she had with him, going to the movie theater, watching a premiere. He would buy her things. He would buy her dresses, things like that. Excuse me. I don't like to say excuse me after I do that. It's so weird to me. But anyway, I don't sense that there was a romantic bond for myself. I love romance. I love being around a woman who I love. I love the thrill of, just being with a person. It's so amazing. I could do anything with a woman who I love. So I didn't really feel that from her, but I don't want to betray the fact that she may have had that to some degree. Anyway, the relationship that she was having with this man was discovered, and she was coaxed to spill the beans about the abuse that she was undergoing. We had this discussion about the victim mentality. Many people believe that all children who engage in relationships with pedophiles are victims. And in the truest sense of the word, I actually would agree that they are victims. But I think to say that, you might ignore the fact that there is some desire in the child. And that's what this story, has shown me. She spoke about how she was coaxed to portray herself as a victim. She did not feel like she was a victim. She enjoyed what was happening. She knew that she had to keep it hidden, but she wanted the interaction that she was having. Now, that doesn't say where that desire came from, but I think it's important to mention nonetheless. So she was it got to a point where uh, these two were separated, and this man was going to, you know, go away. This man was going to go to prison, and um, she was coaxed to, testify to the, how she was being abused. And when it came down to it, she was not able to do that. I want to be a little bit vague on this, but I'm finding it hard to be vague. Basically, at the end, whatever may come, may come. I need to get better at this, perhaps, but basically, instead of saying that, yes, he did it, I was horribly abused, she said, I wanted it. And I think that says a lot. That's why I'm mentioning it. So these two were separated, and the mother was incredibly apologetic. And Tyler basically went on her way in life, and she donned the coat of, for the benefit of those around her, you could say, she put on this persona that she was hurt and that, this horrible thing happened to me. I don't know much about the details of that, but what I'm suggesting here is that she took the truth of the exchange that she had with this man and her sexual experiences as a child. She kind of bottled it up, and she knew that she couldn't speak about this to people who did not have her same view on those matters. So, as I understand, she wouldn't speak to her mother or father, friends, only people who were interested in, or who had the same worldview as she did, and who had the same, understanding as she did, she would speak to. So in her youth, in her teenage years, she looked into the dark web. She looked into the side of the internet, which has child pornography, which hosts forums on pedophilia, secret forums where pedophiles can be truthful and honest about their life, who want to share about their experiences. Also on the dark web, you could, this is what I assume, and I don't know from my own experience, but this is what I understand. You can also make liaisons. You could arrange things with handlers of children or children themselves. The other thing I wanted to say is that Tyler wanted to tell me that in the pedophile community, or in the community of people that she is a part, she considers herself and others like her a MAP. And a MAP is a minor attracted person. And there's a flip side to MAP, which is something I forget, but it's like a minor, instead of a minor attracted person or a person who is attracted to a minor, it would be a minor who is attracted to an older person. So, adult, minor, anyway, yeah, I think you understand. So pedophile isn't really a word that is used very much among pedophiles, you could say. It's a pretty crude explanation that I'm giving, but anyway, she looked into, I think it's called Tor, which is the dark web, and she said that at one point she saw an image of a girl and she found herself aroused. And she knew in that moment that, and I think I mentioned it it was mentioned in the email that she wrote, that she felt, in that moment, she felt some guilt, but she overrode that guilt, feeling that, she would not abuse or manipulate the child. So this is all very interesting to myself. Um, what else can I say? I mean, this woman, Tyler, has gone on to engage in communities online. She is an anti-contact, pedophile, you could say, or MAP, minor attracted person. And she doesn't see the laws changing in her lifetime. And she, at this point, sees herself, continuing to experience sexual attraction for especially young girls, but also young boys and also men. And she will date and see people. Well, she will see men because she's not going to have a relationship with children. And that is her life now. And she lives in secret. The reason why she couldn't see the video that was linked in her community of people, the forum on the dark web or wherever it is, was because the people she didn't want the people around her to see it, to know that, and she's very private about this. So I guess that's the story of Tyler. And now I want to talk about my thoughts. I've thought a lot about this. This was such a meaningful discussion that I had with this woman. Pedophilia has been a major issue in my life. When I say it's a major issue, it's not like nothing else. I guess the only thing that I could compare it to is bestiality, or the desire to have sex with animals. It's a major factor in my life because I want to hide it from people. I don't want people to know that I'm a pedophile. And I say that up until, recently, when I have decided to publicly acknowledge that I'm a pedophile. I have many reasons for that. The primary one is that I want to be open and honest all the time. I'm working to become someone that is truthful all the time, that tells the truth all the time, who is open and transparent about literally everything. So that's why I came out as a pedophile. I say that, but I also want to say that I'm not exclusively attracted to children. In fact, I'm rarely attracted to children. And it's not every child, and it's mostly girls, but it's rare that I will find a girl that I'm attracted to. And usually there has to be some kind of emotional bond first. There has to be some kind of kinship or friendship there before that attraction occurs. But when sexuality for me was something that was repressed from a very early age. I mean, when I was young, I didn't think of sex. I didn't think of having, sexual intercourse, vaginal penetration. I wasn't aware of vaginal penetration. Wasn't aware of anything. I wasn't aware of oral sex, fellatio, cunnilingus. I wasn't aware of anal sex. I wasn't aware of 69ing. I heard something recently like 96ing, which sounds crazy, but anyway. When I was a child, I remember my first experience with a girl named Julia, feeling things for her that were unlike anything that I had felt before. I remember feeling like the first apprehension with her, kind of like the apprehension that you would have with, as a teenager, in the teen romance movies. I remember asking her about herself and being very nervous about asking her. And actually, that's a lot of the same feelings that I have today. I'm very nervous talking to women, making a friendship with a woman. I remember asking her about herself, and I asked her about her father. What does your father do? And she said, "Oh, he's a truck driver." I was like, "Oh, he's a truck driver. Of course he's a truck driver." What was I thinking? Like, just ridiculous apprehension was what I felt. I wasn't thinking about sex at this time. I wanted something from this girl that I didn't understand. I didn't understand the desire I had. Um, when I was 14, 15, I got erections. I don't remember getting erections before that. I now know that there are boys that have erections. Someone I know personally is a boy and has erections. Um, I kind of feel a little gypped, a little cheated that I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to stimulate myself. I didn't know how to masturbate. I don't feel too terrible about it, but in general, I feel badly that I don't remember my childhood. And it's kind of this puzzle that I need to put together. It's something I need to unravel. It's a mess. I remember so little. And as I understand, you can get in touch with every experience of your life and remember everything that you've ever experienced readily if you so choose. In fact, there are people, you can look it up online, there are people that remember every day of their life. I believe that includes their childhood years, which is crazy. But that is something that we can do, but we repress the memory. So I believe I am in heavy repression of myself, and I am on this journey to understand what happened to me. So I feel a little embarrassed at this moment. There was someone watching this stream, and now there's no one watching. Um, I am just, I don't know, I feel like this is kind of purposeless. I don't feel like I'm being concise as I want it to be. And I don't feel like this is very meaningful. So I'm feeling some heat in my head, in my shoulders, my upper arms, and extending down to my upper abdomen, my chest. And I guess that's embarrassment and shame. And it literally prevents me from continuing in a coherent way. So that's why I paused there for a moment. I find that there's so much that I want to talk about with this issue. I believe that pedophilia is essentially wrong, and that unless you are with your soulmate, you should not engage sexually with a child. And that includes an exchange of emotions. So even if you're not touching, even if you're not looking at, or, you know, doing anything sexual near a child who is not your soulmate, if you have an emotion of sexual lust, I believe that you need to look at that. I believe that you need to understand that that is a problem, and that it behooves you. It is incumbent on you to find out why that is there. That is basically a sin. To have lust for a child who is not your soulmate is a sin. And I'm not saying that your soulmate is going to be a child. I'm saying that, your child could be anywhere from, if you are a child, you could have, there could be another child that is your soulmate. And I have no problems with you engaging with that person sexually. There are people in the world who do. Most people in the world at this stage in the world do have a problem with that. And I think that might change. I think it basically has to change. I think there are people who are very loving and advanced in their heart that know that it's okay for two soulmates who are children from age 5, from whatever age is the age where you become fully aware of yourself as a human being, as an individual agent with free will. I believe it's from that age that it's totally within God's loving laws to engage with your soulmate. So basically, what I'm saying is, you know, children having sex, there's nothing wrong with that. My belief is that a friend of mine asked me once, Theo, would you be okay having sex with a child? And I said, if that child was my soulmate, I would say yes. But at this point, I understand that, you know, your soulmate is typically between the ages of is typically within 20 years of your own age. So, you know, I'm a 33-year-old. My soulmate is probably between 53 and 13. Yeah. So I would basically have no problem with engaging with her, whatever age she is. Um, I would prefer if she was younger because I think there's a youthful vibrancy and a beauty to youth. But I also know that that same beauty can be in older people. The reason why it isn't is because we are so damaged emotionally, and we've held on to our emotional pain for so long that we begin to see um, errors in our body. Our physical body begins to deteriorate. And that said, I've been attracted to older women. In fact, there was a woman in her late 60s who I was very attracted to. Um, it's not so much the physical deterioration as it is, well, it is that to some degree, but there's also an emotional exchange that takes place. Now, I don't have my soulmate in my life, and that means that um, I have significant blocks to her, and I do believe it is a her. So I don't even know who she is. I don't have a strong. I've got some suspects, but I don't know who it is. Because I have had attractions for girls, for younger girls. Um, there is a part of me that wishes that my soulmate was younger, even as young as like 5 or 6 or 7. I was attracted to, you know, girls of that age, but I know there's a part of me that, you know, it. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know how I'm coming. I'm worried about how I'm coming across. I'm worried about how I'm explaining myself. I'm worried about, you know, is this worthwhile? Is this meaningful for you to hear? I'm trying to be as open and honest as I can for the sake of people's education. Here's another thing I wanted to talk about. Another thing I want to say is basically that people think that pedophiles want to physically abuse children. And I would say categorically that is not true. There are people who, and I asked Tyler about this, you know, I told her I've heard of satanic ritual sacrifice. I've heard of sex magic. And she said that that does go on. And I think she mentioned that Trump and the Clintons as engaging in that. I was surprised when she mentioned Trump. Not surprised when she mentioned the Clintons. But the word she said was a lot of the white politicians you see are pedophiles. So, but she, along with myself, thinks that that's a horrible thing. Um, I don't want to harm or abuse a child, and I would never engage sexually with a child without their consent. I just want to say that. And I say that knowing that you know, under, I have a belief that it's wrong. I've described what my feelings about pedophilia are. Um, it is a promiscuous lust for children. It's not God's design. It's not part of God's design. And so in the long run, it will not grant you permanent happiness. It won't be a positive memory. When you learn enough to mature beyond your lust, you will experience regret for that. So I say that I would never abuse a child or engage with them sexually without their consent, knowing all that. And I feel like that's important. I think it's wrong to think that all pedophiles you know, are violent. But, because I believe pedophiles, yeah, I know that I described, I defined violence differently earlier. I mean, I guess it is violence. I guess, I would say that having an attraction for someone who's not your soulmate, having a sexual attraction, having an emotional exchange pass from your soul to another person who is not your soulmate, that might be considered a violent act. I remember the moment I realized I had a sexual attraction for a girl. And a lot of my sexual attractions, it was heavily repressed. I heavily repressed any sexual attraction I had. When I had an attraction for a girl, I was shocked. I felt guilty, much like Tyler did. I wanted to deny it immediately. I wanted to pretend it didn't happen, but I knew that I knew it happened. So what I want to say basically is that I think people want to demonize pedophiles. I think there are a lot of people that wish I was not saying what I am saying now. But if you have any hope for humanity, and you may have some false beliefs, there are a lot of people that just think that pedophilia is just a disease. And I would agree in some ways, but they think that it's a disease that can't be cured. And that I disagree with. I believe very strongly that pedophilia can be cured. I believe very strongly that every illness, every physical illness, every emotional illness, mental illness can be cured. I believe in perfection. A lot of people say nobody's perfect. And I feel, a little irked when I hear that, because it's so, like nobody believes that you can be perfect, which is that's a problem. I believe that we can be perfect. Jesus said that, Jesus said, be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. It's no simpler than that. So I would take the phrase nobody's perfect and switch it to nobody's perfect yet. So this might be all, this might be very hard to consume what I'm saying. It might be very hard to accept, because it's kind of all over the place. But basically, what I'm saying is that I don't believe there's anything wrong with children engaging sexually. And then I would say with their soulmate. It's part of God's design to enjoy the pleasures of sex, even from an early age. The only reason why children find it so hard, why they don't have an awareness, is because the adult world around them doesn't want them to have that awareness. So it's really the adults that have the problem uh, so when I think of Tyler, I think some of her desires were misplaced. I think some of her desires were, you could say, sinful, because she wasn't directing her desires towards her soulmate. She was directing them towards different men in her life. And, she didn't ask me for my opinions or views on her pedophilia. Well, she did once, but she didn't ask me for any more. She did once in the email exchange, but not any further in our conversation. So I didn't give it to her. But if she's interested now, those are my opinions. And she knows how I feel. Um, she, I asked her how many pedophiles there are out there, and she said, I could open you up to a whole world. I could get you in touch with the opposite of MAPS. I could basically minors who are attracted to older people, such as myself. And I was like, that can't happen. My first live message. Sup Theo. Travis CX4, and there's a unicorn head. So that's interesting. That reminds me of like intergender, or like not intergender, but like genderless or genders all over the map thing. If you have any question or comment, you can write it and I might respond. I was actually thinking of ending this within the hour. I've been going for almost an hour and I was about to end it. But if you have anything more, you can ask a question and I might respond, or make a comment and I might respond. But, okay. He says, I firmly believe there is only one or two genders. What do you mean by one gender? Only one gender. This is the problem with interacting with chat messages, is that you may be deterred from, what you're saying. I remember watching this one video of this woman who was giving psychotherapy, and she would wait for people to, put a message up for her to say anything. And I tuned out pretty quickly. But that's what I'm doing. I'm waiting for a message. Now I'm going to try to complete what I wanted to say. It's not coming. I'm totally in a different mindset. So yeah, I have been talking for almost an hour. At one point, I paused because no one was watching, and that made me reflect. There's so much that I want to talk. There's so much that I want to say about these issues. I guess this is the point that I was coming to, which is that if you think that I, as a pedophile, shouldn't be talking about this, there's a problem with you. I'm talking about my experience honestly and openly, and I'm talking about it with the interest of changing to become someone better. And if you would like to keep me from doing that, if you think there's, pedophiles are pedophiles and they can't change, I'm a human too. I was born, I grew up in this damaged hell hole of a world. This world is supremely messed up. We are so far from the ideal envisioned by God. Yes, I do believe there's a creator. And we've all been damaged in this world. And I have been damaged too. And my problem is that some of the damage that I have, that has been administered to me, I've held on to. That pain I've held on to. And it has transmogrified into perversions and sinful ideas and desires, and evil desires, you could say, from my heart, that sometimes I have acted upon. But I believe there's a way to change. I'm going to end it here, nip it at an hour. Thank you for watching. I hope this was somehow meaningful to you. And I'll just end with saying there's hope out there.